Let me ask you something. When you come in on Monday and you're not feeling real well, does anyone ever say to you, looks like someone has a case of the Mondays?
No, man. No, man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man. So, instead of curing your case of the Mondays, we're going to get you ready for a Monday Night Showdown in football.
Okay, maybe who to avoid in Week 5, where to draft LeBron James, and some Champions League chatter scattered throughout our rundown as well.
So put down those TPS reports and come join us on The Sweat.
Well, did you get the memo? In case you did not, this is The Sweat. 60 minutes of fantasy advice, not from us, but from our experts, who you can totally blame for your losses every week. We're cool, though. Jessie and Emerson.
Yeah, not our turnover. Let's introduce you to our NFL panel tonight. Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Rosalie Michaels. And it's time for NFL Spin Move, guys. Rosalie going to be joining us in a couple minutes.
Hopefully for internet work.
Hopefully. So we're going to put a fantasy spin on the day's top stories.
All right, starting with Seahawks safety Earl Thomas here, guys. Breaks his leg, has had a contentious relationship with the team the past several months, which you probably picked up on with that friendly gesture he made towards his team's sideline as he was carted off yesterday.
Yeah.
And while this guy really wasn't scaring many people, Reed, are you even more likely now to target players going up against the Seattle defense moving forward?
I mean, we talked about it a little bit. This was a sneaky good defense. I mean, you look at what they were able to do, 11th in total defense and 7 interceptions, right, over the past 3 games. Earl Thomas contributed to 3 of those, so you'll miss his, in terms of what he does in that back end. And really the leader of that secondary, along with Bobby Wagner at linebacker, you're not really attacking Seattle's defense, but it's not an indictment on them. It's really their offense that's really struggling. Their offensive line can't protect Russell Wilson. They're not scoring a lot of points, so opposing teams don't really have to go out and score a ton to beat the Seahawks. Like Arizona and Josh Rosen almost had that game under wraps, and they just lost in terms of a last-minute field goal by Janikowski. So you're not necessarily attacking. You're playing the Rams. You're playing every single Ram that you can against them, but you're not really attacking them, so to speak, because their defense is still good. You're going to miss Earl Thomas, but they're not a defense that I would attack.
Jeff, what do you think here? How good is Seattle's defense now they lose Earl Thomas? Hello, Rosalie. Welcome to the program. We'll get to you in just a second. But, Jeff, are you more likely to maybe target guys going up against this defense even more now?
I thought Earl Thomas was just like a Star Trek fan and going, live long and prosper.
No, Jeff.
I thought that's what he was doing.
It was the middle finger, Jeffrey.
Okay. All right. Look, let's look at who Seattle has played here before we crown them as a good defense. They played Dallas, who can't complete a pass longer than 5 yards. Last week they played Arizona, who is the worst team in the NFL. They played the Bears, who, obviously do have a good offense, but weren't really playing well that game. And then they played Denver. Like, this is not really a murderer's row of schedule they've faced so far. And then they lose their best player. Yeah, it's not maybe the top defense that I'd have to target out of like the top 5 or something. But yeah, I think you're going to see this unit get a lot weaker as the season goes on, especially with the loss of Earl Thomas. I would not have any fear of targeting the Rams next week. A guy like Brandon Cooks could easily get behind this secondary now for a couple touchdowns.
Rosalie, what about you? You're going to be targeting, I'm assuming, almost every Ram going up against this Seattle defense now that is Earl Thomas-less.
Well, I think that the Rams, like the guy said, you have to target them no matter what. They're just that good right now. I think the only defense I'm even afraid of at this point, and I use that term loosely because I trust that my offensive players are going to go up against any defensive players. But look at what we saw with the Bears this week. That's the only defense I'm truly afraid of. So yeah, I think the Seattle defense is a little bit better than we expected them to be. Earl Thomas accounted for 3 of the 7 interceptions that the Seahawks have so far this year. So that's quite a bit, but it's a next man up type of situation up there. So I think they're going to be about the same. Am I shying away from them? No, but I think that they're going to be about the same as they have been.
All right, guys. Well, the Bucs got wiped out by the Bears and a 6-touchdown performance by Mitch Trubisky. That was crazy. Jameis Winston came into the game in relief of Ryan Fitzpatrick, who didn't look great.
No, maybe lost the magic.
Yeah, the team says Winston will start after its bye week. So how much more valuable does Winston make this offense, Jeff?
I mean, I don't really know. The Bucs are such a weird team. To have a quarterback throw for 400 yards 3 straight weeks and then just get demolished. I honestly don't know. I mean, I think Jameis Winston himself is actually going to be a pretty valuable fantasy player going forward because the Bucs defense is so bad. But this team looks like it's headed towards trouble, to be honest. You don't get blown out by Mitch Trubisky, and like good teams don't do that, right? So I don't really know exactly where the Bucs are headed. I do think their offense is going to be something you want to target going forward because they're going to have to be in shootouts, right? Their defense is so bad. Winston should be throwing the ball. And if you look last year, he did sort of make Cameron Brate a thing for a while. Mike Evans played better last year with Jameis Winston than he did with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I think it's going to be a little bit hit or miss with the Bucs. I think there's going to be some real pop weeks where they get into these shootouts, but there's also going to be weeks where they just get hammered like they did last week.
Yeah, so Rosalie, is there value in that Tampa Bay offense when you have Winston at quarterback?
I think when you're talking about, I agree with Jeff. I don't think there's value in Winston, but there's definitely value in the guys around him. So when you're talking about Mike Evans and you're talking about Deshaun Jackson, that's where your value lies. I just can't trust Jameis Winston. You know, even in that half that he played, you know, he had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. And that's what we're used to seeing out of Jameis Winston, just a lot of inconsistency. You know, the best that he's finished fantasy points wise in his career is 13th over the season. He's not a top option at QB, but you can still have some value in Mike Evans and in Deshaun Watson and Cameron Brate now that OJ Howard's gone too, but none in Winston. Don't like him.
Don't
Love it.
like
Winston
him.
hater.
Yeah, love a good Winston hater. Reed, what about you? How do you feel about Winston? Does he add value? We know Fitzpatrick is definitely not Fitzmagic anymore. I saw a lot of Fitztragic stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yep, Rosalie.
Rosalie called that one. Yeah, I mean, when you look at Winston, Cameron Brate is the only one that comes to mind, right, in terms of that connection that he has. OJ Howard now missing 2 to 4 weeks, I think it is, with his injury. So just by a simple arithmetic, you put in Cameron Brate, and if you look at the tight ends, it's a wasteland. Everyone's getting hurt, and you really don't have a lot of tight ends. So if you want to plug and play someone, it's Cameron Brate. But Deshaun Jackson, you know, his value really diminishes now because this connection that we've seen previous with Jameis and him is just not there. It was with Fitzpatrick. You saw Chris Godwin, you know, have some wide receiver 2-3 weeks. But in terms of this entire offense, Jameis, you know, Rosalie is right. Jameis is a guy that we've seen so far the last 3 or 4 years that is a career 60% completion guy. He's not someone that comes out and throws you 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. It's always sort of the other way around where he gives you a touchdown, you might have a fumble and a couple interceptions, but he kind of wins you the game. It's not something that, you know, we really see that he provides value. If you lost Jimmy Garoppolo, if you had Fitzpatrick as your streaming quarterback, Winston obviously is that plug and play, but other than that, no value.
All you guys on Facebook and YouTube asking questions about tonight's Chiefs and Broncos game. We're going to get to that coming up in the show. Captain's picks, value plays, all that fun stuff. But for now, Baker Mayfield makes his first start, an overtime loss to the Raiders. But what did you see out of him that makes him a viable quarterback option moving forward here, Rosalie?
Well, if you count a 51% completion percentage and 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions as a viable fantasy quarterback, then yeah, but I don't. You know, and going forward, the Oakland D has had only forced 1 interception prior to the 2 that Baker, you know, threw this week. Yeah, he's a rookie. I'll give him some time. I'll let him play out. Am I bringing him into any kind of formats right now? No, he still has a lot of learning and a lot of growing to do. But I like the fire in him, but that's about it right now.
Jeff, some good, some bad from the rookie against Oakland. Is he a viable quarterback moving forward, or how close is he to being a viable quarterback?
I don't think he's really going to be somebody you want to target a lot this year. And again, it's not a talent issue. I think Baker Mayfield was definitely deserving of being the number 1 pick. It's just the spot he's in. Hugh Jackson wants to run the ball. He wants to play in these close games that he always loses because he makes dumb decisions at the end of them. And he just does not want to let Baker Mayfield loose. And I don't really know if the Cleveland Browns have the right pieces to let him loose anyways. I mean, Jarvis Landry is there, but he's a 4-7 guy. Callaway's a little bit banged up. We saw him get going towards the end of the game last week, but he's a rookie too, right? So how much can you count on him? Njoku is okay, but again, he's inconsistent. So I just don't know if the pieces are there for this to be like the high-flying version offense that people want. I think Baker Mayfield's more than capable of running an offense like that, but I don't think this Browns team is it. So I'm more inclined to just kind of fade him this year, to be honest.
Yeah, his fellow rookie, Nick Chubb, with a pretty decent game on Sunday, more than 100 yards, a couple touchdowns. But we're talking Baker Mayfield here, Reed. Is he a viable quarterback in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, I'm going to agree with the guys, but I think I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic on Baker. Like, one of those interceptions was tipped, and the other one, that second one, was sort of him trying to win the game. Now, it's a rookie mistake. You don't just chuck it up there and, into the coverage there where it was an easily intercepted ball. But at the same time, when you look at this offense, was it any better with Tyrod? The answer is no. Baker he has that it factor, whatever you want to call it. And look, Tyrod has the same, and Baker have the same intangibles and talents, but Baker just does it better. He doesn't necessarily decrease the value of his skill position players. Jarvis, they in Callaway, their value buoys a little bit. It doesn't go down, but it increases Njoku's. As I talked about it earlier, tight ends are a wasteland. So if you have Njoku out there, we saw the targets that he's able to achieve with Baker Mayfield. And if they won that game, which they really should have, and some bad calls by the refs, we wouldn't be saying, does he not have value? I think we think, hey, look, this guy could potentially increase the win total, increase the perception of the Browns. Does that translate to fantasy? Not right now, but I wouldn't be so down on a Baker because he does have the ability to run this offense a lot better than Tyrod. But Jeff's right. I mean, Hugh Jackson is a bad coach.
Well, guys, all is right in Foxborough, where the Patriots destroyed the Dolphins. Quick turnaround for New England, though, hosting the Colts on Thursday night. Julian Edelman returns from his suspension, and we got another week of Josh Gordon. Who's in line for the biggest game Thursday night, Reed?
I mean, it's New England and everyone in New England, right? And Gronk is a little banged up, but look at Indy. Look what they're running out with. I mean, I have to look at some of these names here. Chester Rogers, Naeem Hines, Zach Pasquale. Like, these guys, Doyle's still hurt, so you have Ebron. These guys aren't necessarily scaring the Patriots. This is what we saw and what we thought the Patriots were going to be when Miami came to Foxborough, is they blew them out. And was that really an indictment on Miami's play calling? Yeah, because look what Detroit did to New England. New England's defense is not that good. But Indy's offense, we saw a shootout in Houston. They just don't have a defense. Their defense is strong in terms of like packing those stats if you're playing in IDP leagues for your season long. But other than that, I'm not really afraid of Indy's defense. And they just don't have the offensive power, especially with those guys here, with T.Y. Hilton potentially banged up and probably not playing. I mean, you could go out and play Gordon. You could go out and potentially play Dorsett. Hogan is a virtual unknown, so I wouldn't play him. But I think those guys in Foxborough are doing pretty well.
Rosalie, what are your expectations for this Pats offense with Edelman back in and Josh Gordon in the lineup for another week?
Well, it's so funny. I think we go through this every year with the Patriots. I kind of have this, if you don't like what the Patriots are doing, just wait a week, because if they're going to come back, they always do, and start putting up big points. It seems like the first couple of weeks, the Patriots are slow playing us. I think they're messing with us a little bit, but they're slow playing us, and then they kick in and they go, oh, yeah, there's the Patriots we know and love. So, if you look at the Colts last week, they gave up 35 fantasy points at the QB position. The first 3 weeks, it was over 30 fantasy points each week to running backs, 34.6 fantasy points to Zach Ertz and the Philly offense in week 3. That's a lot of points. The last 5 matchups, the fewest points that were scored by the Pats was 34, with the high being at 59. They're going to score a lot of points against the Colts. So, yeah, to me, everybody is viable on the Pats, including Edelman. And if you need a flyer and you're desperate, Hogan can be in there too.
Oh.
Jeff, what do you think? Edelman back. Who's going to have the biggest game?
I think Julian Edelman is going to step right in and have a big game. I mean, he's coming off a 4-week rest. Again, this wasn't an injury situation. You look at the splits with and without Edelman, and he just bumps everyone up. Gronk splits with Edelman in the lineup is much better. He works the mid-under routes so good that it just draws the defense over. I think it could open up Chris Hogan. Obviously, Gronkowski's questionable for this week, but if he does play, I could see him going off. Maybe Edelman being a little bit more subdued. And if Gronk sits, I think Edelman just might get all the targets. So I would not be scared of targeting him in this game. I think Rosalie's right. The Colts play at one of the fastest paces in the league, too, by the way. So I think you could really see the passing game open up here for the Patriots, who a little bit more running back focused. James White was kind of like the not good game there last week. I think you might see the wide receivers get a little bit more involved.
Yep, from 1-2 to 3-2 here likely in 5 days. All right, thank you, friends. Y'all hang around for some NFL talk. We're going to be talking some hangovers here. We got some NBA talk as well coming up right after a little Monday Night Football preview.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Who to watch in DK Showdown Captain Mode contest tonight? Patrick Mahomes, for sure. But notice I said watch, not target necessarily. Mahomes owns the highest salary for this contest. $19,200 as your captain, $12,800 as a flex play. The second-year QB has dazzled through 3 weeks, 13 touchdowns to no picks. Last time out against the 49ers, Mahomes found 9 different pass catchers. He certainly has talent around him, but he has amplified everyone's game, period. Mahomes faces a Broncos defense, though, that's ranked 12th in least DraftKings fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. Plus, the whole Mile High narrative raises eyebrows as Denver's D tends to elevate at home. They have an advantage there. But Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, they've had decent performances there this season, so it's not a slam dunk. The Broncos lock it down defensively. With all that said, it's a safe move to keep Mahomes out of your captain slot. Be more creative there, and then use Mahomes as a flex play, meaning more flexibility for your lineup construction. It's a long way of saying, yeah, play Mahomes, I just don't love him as your captain target. Good luck tonight.
Alrighty, well, most people's eyes were glued to football all day and night yesterday. We understand. LeBron James made his Lakers debut, and it was the embodiment of preseason basketball, a teaser, a taste of what's to come. And yeah, spoiler alert, he's still really good.
Wow, who would have thought?
Right?
So basketball,
Imagine that.
it's almost back. So we're going to discuss ADPs by playing something we call high or low, old faces in new places. With our NBA panel. Yeah, did you like that? I know you did. Adam Mancuda of Phantom Sports and Matt LaMarca of the Action Network. That Action Network app is available on iPhones and Androids. So yeah, gang's all here.
All right, Matt. How did James' debut last night impact your opinion on an ADP of 4 for the King?
Absolutely none. As long as LeBron didn't get hurt yesterday, there was nothing he could really do that was going to impact how I view him. I think 4 is basically the floor for him. You know, there's a tier of Anthony Davis, LeBron, James Harden, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Rank those 4 guys however you want, but I can't see LeBron falling past 4. We know how dominant this guy is. That said, there are a couple concerns. Like, first off, this is year 16 for him, and we're not talking 16 normal years. We're talking 16 grueling years with a lot of minutes. He's gone to the NBA Finals 8 straight years, played all 82 regular season games last year, led the league in minutes. Like, am I expecting him to slow down? Absolutely not. I'm pretty convinced at this point that he's an alien or a cyborg. But would it be possible for him to slow down? Sure. The second is his free throw percentage at this point. You know, he's going to hurt your team free throw rate. He hasn't shot above 75% since 2012, and he still gets to the line a pretty healthy amount. So if you do draft him, you're going to have a deficiency in that department. And then finally, we just don't know what the situation in LA is going to be. He had to carry the Cavs last year. Obviously, the supporting cast in LA this season is equally untalented, but we don't know if Walton is going to push him as hard as Ty Lue did last year. They might look to rest him a little bit, in anticipation of the playoffs. So if he does rest a bit more, that's obviously going to hurt him from a fantasy perspective.
Adam, were you questioning what Matt had to say about the talent as equally as bad out there in LA?
No, I think that it's a fair point. I do think the guys like Ingram and Kuzma are obviously talented. We haven't really seen the best of Ball yet, and I think that some of the other guys that he brought in basically as the GM of the team, the de facto GM, are certainly going to play important factors here. But to me, there's Russell Westbrook also, who we didn't mention was in the top 4. Also, how is Kawhi Leonard going to do in Toronto is really the focal point there. For me, though, it's the age. It's the other guys that he does have a deep bench where they could replace him if he's playing the 4 or even at the point with guys like like Rondo or Beasley or whomever else they signed. They signed about 50 guys in the offseason to be like filler guys. So for me, there are safer options there on teams where they are the key focal point with a lot less experience and explosiveness as they do in LA with some of those young guys like Kuzma and Ingram. So for me, I would have LeBron probably at 5 or 6. So to me, that's why I think he's just 1 or 2 spots too high.
All right, guys, DeMar DeRozan, now a Spur, part of the Kawhi deal. How does an ADP of 24 feel, Adam?
I actually think DeMar's a little too high there. Look, he's going to a Spurs team that is much less about the individual than it is about the team. He's now going to have to share looks with guys like Murray and Aldridge and Gasol and Rudy Gay if he comes back healthy this season. So for me, it's a guy that he doesn't hit that many threes. It's a little over 1 a game, about a little over 1.1 steals per game. Doesn't get you many blocks. His assist and rebound numbers have gone up a little bit, and the scoring is there. But the scoring I anticipate coming down in San Antonio. How's he going to mesh there in the new system with Popovich? So for me, 24 is a little bit too high. I'd probably have him in like the 30 to 33 range myself.
Action Matt, ADP 24. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think Adam's pretty much spot on there. He was 24th on the player rater last season in a Toronto system that he was extremely comfortable in. He mentioned the 1.1 threes per game. That was like a career high by a significant margin for DeRozan. So he's not a great shooter. I think he was only 31% last season, which still puts him well below average in that department. I'm very curious to see how this system works, because if you look at him, Aldridge, DeJounte Murray, it's a lot of guys who need the ball in their hands to be successful, not a lot of floor spacing. So I think the 24 definitely carries a little bit of risk here. So I agree, it's too high.
And Matt, Dwight Howard now paired with John Wall in Washington, an ADP of 51 for the center. I feel like he set a goal to try to play for every NBA team that he can. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, listen, 51 for Howard is just way too high. Unless you're punting the free throw percentage category, then it's just too high. If you are punting free throw percentage, I think there are better sources to go with than Howard. I would spend a higher pick on Capella or DeAndre Jordan, wait a little bit later and get somebody like Steven Adams, who I think can replicate exactly what Howard does at this point at a cheaper cost. His field goal percentage numbers dropped off a big time last year. And that's one of the categories that you're really looking to lock down if you're drafting an elite center and punting free throw percentage. The talk about him shooting some threes in Washington this season doesn't inspire a ton of confidence that it's going to rebound either. So I think as far as, big men punting free throw style, there are better options for sure.
We got not one, but 2 thumbs ups from you there, Adam.
Totally. When I saw this question, I actually chuckled a little bit because that put him right around the 5th round. And when I looked at it, there were 13 other centers when I just looked at the list really quickly that I would take over him, including guys like Steven Adams, a healthy DeMarcus Cousins, you got to remember, should be back by February, March, DeAndre Jordan, Whiteside, Turner, Capella, Embiid. Got on and on and on. Horford, Gobert, and then obviously the studs.
So what you're saying is it's a little too high.
I don't like it. I mean, the biggest thing, too, is got to remember there's a big factor that we're missing is the knucklehead factor. At one point, is real Dwight Howard going to come out and ruin this team? They said that Bradley Beal and John Wall hate each other. At some point, they were going to both hate Dwight Howard. He's going to end up playing for the NBDL or something. So for me, the knucklehead factor is too much. I would not have Howard on my team. So 54 is way too high, and I'd let someone else have to deal with that problem come December when he's not happy around the holiday time.
Chemistry time bomb.
Yeah,
exactly.
Smart.
Thank you for keeping it real, Adam.
Yeah.
Of
All right.
course.
Thanks, guys. We got more NFL talk on the way, but first, let's get an update from Pat Mayo on what wide receivers could be available on waivers for your season-long teams.
John Brown at number 1. Yeah, he's he's right on the fringe of
Come on, people, go pick up John Brown.
Yeah, he's just play every week. Quincy Enunwa still below.
Oh my goodness.
And he just put up 4 for 60 against Jacksonville, so
yeah.
he's fine.
He's awesome.
Mike Williams, Jamison Crowder, who gets the Saints this week on Monday night, coming off bye. Antonio Callaway, Tywan Taylor. They cut Rashard Matthews.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's Tywan Taylor. Tawana, man.
Yeah, he had a lot of targets. It was Sharp, I think, who had the touchdown.
Yeah, and then he dropped.
And then he dropped he dropped one deep one, yeah. But Taylor should be owned 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everyone likes him anyway, but now the opportunity is there for him. Yeah. Geronimo Allison, who I just think should be owned.
Yeah.
I have him at 7. Kiki Kute.
Kiki.
If Will Fuller actually misses time,
I would bump him up the list. I just don't know how much value he's going to have when Fuller plays.
It is tough when Fuller comes back because he's had, I think, 29% of the target share and Hopkins has just over 30. So, but yeah, where are those targets going to come? Where are they going to go now without,
Well, yesterday they all went to Kiki.
They all went to Kiki. Yeah, I think a week high 15 targets, a week high 11 catches. He's explosive too. You can use him in a couple different ways. I think you touched on it earlier, like a couple bubble screens or whatever you want. Short.
Yeah, they were giving him reverses.
He's explosive. He's very speedy. He's a weapon.
Well, he might really fit in because they don't use really a tight end. So you have Hopkins, you have Fuller, and he can just kind of man the middle short of the field and maybe take some shots deep because everyone's just.
And that was his first game. I think even with a healthy Fuller, I think you won't see 15 and 11 catches, but I think you'll see him definitely involved in the offense. And why not? It was one of the best offenses in football last year, and it's going to be this year as well.
Would you pick up Tywan Taylor or Kute?
I would pick.
And I'll learn how to say his name correctly here. At one point.
Kiki Kuti.
Kiki.
I would pick up Kiki because I just think there's more upside in that offense. Like, I don't know where the ceiling is with the Titans. I know we touched on this yesterday. Now they had Mariota looked pretty good. His numbers at the end of the game were pretty decent. They had to play some catch up in the second half, but I don't know where the ceiling really lies with this Titans offense. Like, their defense is fine. I don't know where they're getting all their points from. Like, Corey Davis is the guy that I want, and then after that it's like, So I think I'd rather Kiki. I just like the ceiling that he provides in that offense. I like Watson a lot. And Fuller. Again, that's the bottom line. He's super soft, man.
Yeah, well, he has soft tissue injury.
Very soft
tissue. Just like Elshon did for years.
He was the perfect sell high candidate. Last year, 7 of his 13 catches from Watson went for touchdowns. This year,
he's scored a touchdown in every game he's played with Watson.
Yeah, I know. Over 100 yards in a touchdown week 1, over 100 yards in a touchdown week 2. I don't think those are exact weeks, but his first 2 games with them. So
I would almost actually consider the flip side of that.
Yeah,
people know that he's hurt. They know he's an injury risk.
Now you can buy him.
I would just go buy him right now.
Right,
and just
it changes so quickly.
Know what you're getting from him. That he's a guy that's going to be hurt, but when he plays, play him.
It changes so quickly. Last week I was able to trade him for Hyde. I love that. And now this week it's like, well, now I'm going to go try to get Fuller everywhere I can. Like, it changes so quickly from week to week. It's all about what have you done for me lately, and every time somebody's dinged up, you can buy on the cheap.
Welcome back to The Sweat. Welcome back to Jeff, Reed, and Rosalie. As you know by now, it's Monday. People are hungover, so let's talk NFL hangovers and which players with a huge week 4 could regress in week 5.
Bound to happen sometime, but is this the week Alvin Kamara slows down as the Saints host Washington on Monday Night Football? And with Mark Ingram back from suspension, what do you think, Jeff?
I actually don't think it is. I know it makes sense. I mean, Ingram's back. He's obviously going to start getting worked in, but if you look at Alvin Kamara, the 3 weeks before he had that obviously monster game against the Giants, he did all his damage in the pass game. He was catching, 10, 12 targets. This isn't that bad a matchup against the Redskins, who have actually allowed quite a few catches to the running back position. Yeah, Mark Ingram's going to take the later game carries. He's probably going to get goal line touches. Alvin Kamara is still like the prime receiver for Drew Brees. He throws to Michael Thomas and he throws to Alvin Kamara. And I don't see the Saints necessarily just throwing Mark Ingram into a 50-50 split right away either. So I think we got one more good week with Kamara. Ingram will start to get worked in. It's after the bye week I'd start to worry about him.
Reed, what do you think? Could we see some regression?
I mean, like, what kind of regression, right? I mean, even if this guy loses 15% of his production and goes down to 29 average DK points, he's still number 1 running back over Todd Gurley. Like, he's seeing 81% of the snaps. If that goes down, Jeff's right. They're not going to rush Ingram back. So let's say he gets 75%. He's still in an RB1 consideration. And let's look at last year when these guys were both in and both top 10 running backs. So the first 8 games, we didn't really see much of Kamara, but really that last 8, he averaged 28 DK fantasy points, or 28.5, I believe. And those last 8 games, his production is still sustaining. Like, the Redskins have a strong defense. Again, they've only played 3 games, right? So in terms of the statistics, if you're looking at it today, it doesn't account for this last week or this last game. At the same time, like, this is what you do. Jeff's right. You attack the pass game with the running backs against the Redskins, and Kamara can sustain value even with Mark Ingram back. So I wouldn't worry too much about Kamara's production because he still can sustain as their RB1.
Rosalie, you think he's still going to see as many touches? What do you think?
Well, no disrespect to the guys, because I love you guys, but come on, how can you not expect that there's going to be some regression here? 31.7 fantasy points over the first 3 weeks, averaging. That's not going to happen. If you look at last year, it was 19.7 to 17.4 average per game between Kamara and Mark Ingram. Now, Mark Ingram, they're acting like they're not going to throw him back in there. This is not coming back from an injury. Of course, they're going to have him up on everything. Mark Ingram actually met the Saints at the airport on Monday. That's how excited he is to get to play again. And so I think that they're going to throw him in there. He's fresh legs. He's excited. Are we going to see Kamara still? Yeah, quite a bit. Like you said, in the passing game, he's going to be there. But to expect that he's going to have just slightly less fantasy points, I think is misguided. I think we're going to see him have a lot less this week, especially against the Redskins.
Wipe that smirk off your face, Jeffrey. Hey, Golden Tate with...
Never!
I know, right? It's permanent. Golden Tate with more than 130 yards receiving, a couple trips to the end zone against Dallas. So what makes you think he'll find similar success at home against the Packers next Sunday, Rosalie?
Well, let's look at it this way. This was the first time that Tate has scored twice in a game since December of 2015. So for Lightning to strike twice in a week like that, I think that's a lot to ask. You know what? He's been the best receiver in Detroit, but that's not saying a whole lot to me. And next week he's matching up against the Packers right at home. The Lions are super pass heavy, so he's gonna get the targets. His completion percentage has gone up, so I really like that a lot because he was dropping a lot in the beginning of the season. And the Packers gave up a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers versus Minnesota, but they've been pretty solid against Buffalo, Chicago, and Washington. So tempered. I don't think he's going to be having the touchdowns. Will he get the targets? Yes.
Hey, Reed, what do you think here? The Packers just shut down that high-octane offense of the Buffalo Bills. So you think Golden Tate here can cause some damage?
Well, I think Rosalie just maybe contradicted herself a little bit because what receivers are you scared of in those teams that she mentioned? I mean, Taylor Gabriel saw a ton of yards, right? I mean, you don't really see those receivers doing much. And Golden Tate, she's right. Like, look, with Detroit, right, you do see a three-headed monster, but Detroit right now can sustain 3 fantasy-relevant receivers. Golden Tate is 6th in targets. He's averaging 18 DK fantasy points, and this guy is an absolute PPR monster. Will he have the same game that he did last week? Probably not, but at the same time, how do you attack Green Bay? You attack the outside, you attack the secondary because they're just hurt. They're decimated. They're not necessarily getting any pressure. Like Clay Matthews is getting pressure on the quarterback, but that's one guy who's potentially getting fine after fine after fine for hitting the quarterback as soft as he can. So I'm not afraid of Green Bay, even though Buffalo didn't score a single point against them. You worry a little bit about that secondary in Green Bay, and Golden Tate, Kenny Galladay, and Marvin Jones are potentially the 3 best, like the best tandem or the best trifecta, in the NFL in terms of receivers. So I do think he has a productive day. I don't think he has the same day, but I do think he has a productive one.
Rosalie looks a little unsure about your answer there, Reed.
I think I need to introduce Reed to this little team called the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
Those wide receivers in the game.
Yeah, Reed.
Hey, Jeff, what do you think?
Reed.
Yeah, Jeff.
All right, Jeff.
36 fantasy points for Golden Tate. Can you do it again?
Probably not. I mean, if you look back last week, it made sense. He went off against the Cowboys that actually have really good outside corners, but their slot corner is one of the worst in the league right now. So, hindsight is 20/20, but it actually made sense to them to target Golden Tate in that matchup. It is a pretty decent matchup for the Packers. They're down Tremont Williams. They dragged the carcass of Rashad Breeland off the street to play in their secondary. I could see Golden Tate having another big game. I'm more inclined to think they're going to go to Kenny Galladay, push the ball a little bit more to the outside against the Packers because it's a much more winnable matchup there for him and Marvin Jones. So I think it'll get split. The fantasy goodness will get split a little bit more. I'm actually pretty excited for this game, fantasy purposes, but I think the goodness will get split between all 3 next week.
All right, guys. Well, you're so full of knowledge, and we all just have so much fun together that we're really heavy, so we have to wrap now. Good stuff from you, though. We still need to talk tonight's showdown, so do hang tight. We need more knowledge from you. And after Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan, we'll take a trip to the Champions League.
Hey everybody, I'm Brendan Glasheen for DK Live. This is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan, Week 4 edition. Be sure to check out Adam's content on DK Live and the DraftKings playbook. Levitan recaps a few of his miscues from Sunday, guys he flat out missed and wasn't on. Then there are a few players he was just too high on, like Odell Beckham Jr. For example, he didn't match anything close to his salary of $8,400, 60 yards, no touchdowns, just 14 DK points. Levy, what prevented a big day from OBJ?
Yeah, and we've been talking about this for a while, how Eli Manning can really cripple this offense, and that continues to happen. You just have to be careful with Odell, who has overcome some messy games from Eli in the past, mostly based on yards after catch, but Eli just can't get the ball deep anymore, so he's checking down to Sterling Shepard, he's checking down to Odell, and nothing's really happening after that. Also, Saquon Barkley taking up a big target share, and then also, Marshawn Lattimore, who was awesome as a rookie last year, struggled a bit early this year, but back-to-back weeks, Marshawn Lattimore has done a good job on Julio Jones and now does a good job on Odell Beckham, so I think that's something to watch as well.
All right, you weren't on Corey Davis, and those of you who did play him, you got a steal at 5,300. 9 receptions on 15 targets, 161 yards and a touchdown. Does your perception of Davis change going forward after last week?
Yeah, it's not about Davis. I think it's more about Marcus Mariota. I knew Corey Davis, and I thought about him. I knew that he was too cheap relative to how many targets he was seeing and his talent level. Remember, this was a former top 5 overall pick in the draft. Dude can really play. I was concerned that Marcus Mariota's elbow issue, which has caused numbness, which has limited his throwing strength, would be such a problem that using Tennessee wide receivers would be a mistake. But Mariota actually looked pretty strong, and I think as he continues to get healthier and healthier, Corey Davis will continue to have really big games like this.
And Davis up to 6,400 for Week 5 against the Bills. All right, last one, another miss, DeAndre Hopkins. He shined in the Texans' overtime win over the Colts, 169 receiving yards and a touchdown. Why did you stay away from D-Hop this past week?
Yeah, probably a little bit of over-respect for the Colts defense. They did lose Kenny Moore in this game to injury early, which may have made a difference, but not sure it makes a huge deal when DeAndre Hopkins is just such a talented player, and we're seeing him not just do the underneath stuff anymore, particularly after Will Fuller left with an aggravation of his hamstring injury. DeAndre Hopkins was going over the top and getting touchdowns. So I think DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that we need to consider each and every week with Houston's defense playing so bad. It just leads to a lot of shootouts.
All right, that's it for this week's edition of Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan. Again, you can find Levitan on the DK Live playbook and on DK Live. We'll catch you next Monday to recap Week 5.
All right, big 6-game slate coming our way in the Champions League tomorrow. We've got Jordan Cooper of RotoWire and the Action Network, Sean Newsham here to have a little chit-chat about it.
Yeah, so Jordan, who's your pick at forward for tomorrow?
Well, I know Sean's on, so he's expecting me to say James Rodriguez because there isn't a guy with a share of set pieces that I don't like. But as we see with the Premier League slates, we normally play Sergio Aguero over 10K in situations where they're big favorites and he has high goal-scoring odds. Well, Bayern is in that situation tomorrow, and Lewandowski is under 10K. His goal-scoring odds are minus 350. He has a 50% chance possibly of scoring 2. So even in cash games, I could even make the case that Lewandowski at 1K more is actually a better play, and I wouldn't be surprised if you paired them both together.
And Sean, who are you taking at forward for tomorrow?
Yeah, as Jordan talked about a little bit, in Champions League, you're looking for goals more often than not because they're generally more higher scoring games. So I'm going to give you a goal scoring guy as well, and surprise Jordan by not giving you James Rodriguez as well. Dzeko is just below Robert Lewandowski tomorrow in terms of goal expectation. He's probably the second guy on the slate. If you look at everybody on the slate in their last year's stats, Dzeko was the number 1 shot producer on this slate, and he's in a very solid matchup at home as a 1.5 goal favorite, and he's going to be the second highest goal scoring odds on the slate. You get him at quite a reduced salary compared to what Lewandowski's at, and you get him at 8,500. I think Dzeko is really a great forward play to look at tomorrow.
Hey, Sean, your selection at midfield is who?
I really like to look at the Lyon twosome of Nabil Fekir and Memphis Depay. I like to look at per 90 stats and see what guys do over the course of an entire game and what you can expect from their productions, and then remove the goals and assists because you're looking for what you can get out of a 4 as well as 2 guys that might be able to score some goals as well. Depay and Fakir both rank very highly in terms of their expectation in the per 90 stats, and both of them have a great ability to score goals as well. They should be the penalty kick takers for their team as well, and both of them in the high 8Ks provide great value on tomorrow's slate.
Who are you going with at the midfield, Jordan?
Well, the problem that I have with the Lyon players is that they're very expensive and they tend to cannibalize one another. I do like Fakir. I do like Depay. Shakhtar is not a bad team, and Lyon is not the greatest of teams. So I think that's more of an even match. So I'm looking, while Sean likes Dzeko as the goal-scoring option, I like to see who's going to be starting in the midfield for Roma as the second biggest favorite. And with Pastore out, Perotti out, we're going to see probably Pellegrini and or Cengiz Ünder. And if they're both in, I'd probably prefer Pellegrini for 6K. And if one is in and not the other, I'm more likely to plug one of them into my cash lineup rather than go up with Dzeko and then fade the Lyon options completely.
Middies. All right. What about D? Sean, who are you going with at defense?
I think I'm going to have to steal Jordan's pick here. I'd be very surprised if it's anyone other than Alexander Kolarov. Kolarov is a fantastic play, and we've sort of talked about how good of a matchup it is for Roma at home. Kolarov has one of the best per 90 floors as in terms of a defenseman, and he's in a great situation tomorrow. And then you add in the set pieces. He makes it a no-brainer situation for him on the defensive side, and especially when you have guys like Marcelo out for Real Madrid, it really cuts down the pool and what you can expect from the defender. So if you have the salary at 6,700, Alexander Kolarov is the no-brainer play for tomorrow.
And what about you, Jordan? Are you going to prove Sean right?
No, I'm going to prove him wrong. I think Kolarov is the most overpriced play. He's taken one set piece in 4 games. Of course, he does take free kicks, but corner-wise, I'd much rather go with Pellegrini or Ünder. And that's why Kimmich, if you want to pay up, is 6,900. I think he's a much better play. But even then, paying up at 2 defender spots may not be the optimal option. I'm more likely to go down into the 4K range. And although it's the lowest scoring game, Greek sides tend to be tough to break down. And that's why Benfica may have to use their wider players more for crossing and for tackling. So I'm looking more at Almeida and Grimaldo on the Benfica side. Their clean sheet equity is going to be pretty high in a total that's barely over 2 as a road favorite. But if you're going to pay down at defense, I don't think going under the 4K range is viable. But definitely the Benfica forwards, they would be the lowest priced favored fullbacks that are available.
All right, well, what about between the pipes? Who do you like in goal, Jordan?
Well, my theory with goalkeepers, if you're not going to pay up, you're going to pay all the way down, and you're going to go for a home underdog that's set to face a lot of shots, and you may not be playing many attackers against, and that's Igor Akinfeev. And the problem with Akinfeev historically is that he is allergic to clean sheets, but I don't even think you need it at his price tag of 3,800. Real Madrid will be without Bale, without Isco, without Sergio Ramos, without Marcelo. The line has gone dramatically down in that game. They're traveling 4,000 plus kilometers. So even if he gives up 1 goal, but if he gets 4 or 5 saves in the process, I think 6, 8, 10 points isn't out of the question, and that's perfectly acceptable for a $3,800 price tag.
Okay, yeah, kind of like a value pick, though. I like it. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I think Jordan makes a great case. You have multiple guys out for Real Madrid already tomorrow. It looks like they're going to send their B team for the game for the most part. I'm going to give a little bit different of a take, but same similarities. I generally like to pay down at goaltenders, especially in the Champions League when you see teams that see a lot of shots and heavy shots. My favorite play tomorrow in goal is going to be Neto or whoever ends up starting for Valencia. Manchester United is in shambles currently with all that's going on between Jose Mourinho and Paul Pogba. So I think that when you're looking at it, you look at a situation where you have a team like Manchester United that takes some shots. You have guys like Pogba, Lukaku, who take some outside the box shots that have low chances of going in. And you have a situation where you have a team that's just not scoring goals and is really struggling in general. And you can get Neto in a chance that they could maybe steal a point, get a clean sheet, get a 0-0 result. I think you're looking at one of those 2 options in net for sure.
All right, before you guys go, real quick, hit us with your slate-approved picks. Jordan, who are you going with?
Well, I'm not going with a pick with anyone else. It's just that I think my approved lock is going to be I'm going to end up paying $6,600 for Toni Kroos in my cash lineup. He's going to get me 6 points, and I'm going to say, why did I make that mistake again for the 3rd year in a row?
Sean, who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit lower, and it's something that is going to debunk Jordan's talk of the defenseman not being able to pay down. In the first Champions League game, Yaroslav Rakitsky for Shakhtar was taking indirect set pieces as well as direct set pieces. So we talk about center backs in general that can be targets in the aerial battles in the box. You have a guy like Rakitsky who took 6 crosses in the first game, and he was taking outside shots. You get him at 3,100. You could possibly get a guy at 3,100 if you're looking to punt that could possibly produce great value at 3,100 where no one else is in that range.
Jordan's kind of laughing at you, but we are out of time, gentlemen. We appreciate both of you joining us. We're playing NBA Pick and Roll with Matt and Adam next.
Time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Brendan Glasheen. 2 fantasy weapons are set to make their season debuts in Week 5. Patriots wide receiver Julian Edelman and Saints running back Mark Ingram. They return to their squads following 4-game suspensions. Just as a heads up, neither is on Sunday's main slate. Edelman's back at Gillette Stadium prepping for Thursday night versus the Colts. He's expected to reclaim his role as New England's starting slot man. Tom Brady will be happy to have his buddy back. Edelman, in fact, the longest tenured receiver on the Pats roster. He is 32 years old, however, returning from a torn ACL that sidelined him for all of 2017. With Danny Amendola in Miami, a lot will be asked of Edelman, which sounds promising fantasy-wise, but he has some rust to shake off, and he's got to stay healthy. In Ingram's case, many wonder how his homecoming impacts Alvin Kamara, who is on pace for more than 1,100 yards rushing, 1,300 yards receiving, and 24 touchdowns. Pretty insane. Well, Kamara is pumped anyway to have his running mate back. It's about to get ugly, he said Sunday, and he meant that in a good way. The Saints play next Monday night, home against the Redskins. Ingram immediately gives Kamara some relief and a go-to option for the team in goal line situations. The Patriots and Saints have historically showcased prolific offenses. They just got a whole lot better overnight.
We are back with Adam Mancuda of Phantom Sports and Action. Matt LaMarca, are you all right? Emerson?
Yeah, I was getting ready to
you were going to read
reading.
even though it said Jessie?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I have
Get
a Florida
together.
education, people.
Please get it together. The Action Network app is available now on iPhone and Androids. Now, Emerson, it's your turn.
That's what my name means.
Yeah.
Gents, this is NBA Pick and Roll Rookie Edition. Who would you pick to have the biggest impact out of these one-on-one matchups we're about to give you? So top pick DeAndre Ayton with Phoenix or European prospects Luka Doncic with the Mavericks. Adam?
I love Luka here. I just think that he is more of an opportunity to come in and make an impact right away. I think he has more opportunity there. They only really have Harrison, Barnes, and Smith on the offensive end that I really trust. I think he'll be able to get some minutes there alongside Smith. I also think that Ayton's got a lot of other guys on that team that can step in and take shots. You got Ariza and Booker. You got Ryan Anderson. So they have a handful of guys that can obviously put the ball in the net. They don't have a point guard. So how's he going to get the ball into him? He's not going to dribble it all the way up the court. So a little worried about that. I think Ayton's going to be a great pro, the old school center. But to me, Doncic is certainly more exciting. And I think that he'll do a little bit more in his rookie season, and they'll both develop into all-stars in this league. I'm really excited to watch both of them play throughout the season.
What do you think here, Action Matt? I know a lot of people at home probably saw a lot of Ayton during his days at Arizona here, but not much of Doncic, obviously, playing over in Europe.
Yeah, look, I'm a Luka Doncic truther. Absolutely love him. Don't know how he fell to the 4th overall pick. If I was the Kings, I would have ran to the podium as soon as the Suns took Ayton. But from a fantasy perspective, I think the call has to be Ayton here. He's just super polished on the offensive end. He's kind of in that Karl Anthony Towns mold. He can step out and shoot a little bit. I think he's going to give you really good counting stats as a rookie, good percentages. Obviously Devin Booker is a big usage threat, but I'm not worried about Trevor Ariza. I'm not worried about Ryan Anderson. I think those guys will be more, space the floor candidates. Doncic, meanwhile, is going to have to contend with Dennis Smith Jr. He had a usage rate of basically 30% as a rookie. Barnes is still there. So I just think it's easier for a big man to make a fantasy impact, which is why I will go with Ayton here.
Point guards, Trae Young or Colin Sexton. Who are you going with, Matt?
This is Trae Young easy for me. I don't know what else the Hawks are going to do outside of just give him the ball and let him try to fill up the stat sheet. They kind of did the same thing with Dennis Schroeder last year. Sorry, I think that Trae Young has the potential to be like a 30+% usage guy as a rookie. We know about his assist capability. The only thing that's going to happen is he's going to turn the ball over a lot, and his percentages might not be great. But I think he has the potential to just be a usage monster right away. And if you look at Sexton in Cleveland, they still have Kevin Love. I think Kevin Love, probably won't be able to go back to his Minnesota-type production, but he certainly is going to have the first chance to fill up the stat sheet on a nightly basis. So, yeah, give me Trae Young easy here.
Adam, you're nodding. Do you agree?
Totally. I think all the points he made were spot on. I think Young will be, hurt your team in terms of field goal percentage. He'll also hurt your team in turnovers, but at the same time, he's going to have the opportunity to chuck it up there. I mean, honestly, can you name anyone else on the Hawks? I'll wait.
Oh, that's going to be a no.
Yeah, neither could I.
Dog.
So I know Schroeder was there. He's gone. I know they had Melo for like 15 seconds. He's gone. So for me, I think Sexton, he has Jordan Clarkson there. He's George Hill there. The guys are kind of blocking his path in Cleveland. You know that Love's going to get the ball and look to put up those Minnesota-type numbers. So, and I love Sexton. If I'm going to try to wait on him and get him, I think he'll develop into a very solid point guard in the league. But if you're just looking for upside this year, I mean, Trae Young's going to be it. And I think he's actually going to probably go overdrafted because people are going to see that opportunity and then not realize the field goal percentage issues and turnover issues. But if you're going to have one over the other for this year, give me Trae Young.
How about a couple unpopular picks? Kevin Knox of the Knicks or Utah's Grayson Allen?
Grayson Allen.
Matt?
Oh, man. Kevin Knox couldn't be any more popular in New York right now. They have completely changed their tune on him. And again, I think this is another one that's kind of a blowout. The Jazz are just too deep for Allen to make a huge impact this year. They've got Rubio. They've got Donovan Mitchell. Joe Ingles, who is just super underrated from a real-life perspective. Even guys like Dante Exum and Alec Burks are going to get minutes. Meanwhile, Knox is going to have a chance to just be the guy, at least while Porzingis is out. And we've seen this a lot with Kentucky players recently. They come into the league sort of underrated because Calipari is so committed to spreading the minutes, spreading the production around, and trying to get as many guys on his team drafted as possible. So I think it's possible that Knox, is going to be a steal where the Knicks got him. And I think he's got some Rookie of the Year upside for sure.
How much Rookie of the Year upside does he have in your opinion, Adam? Knox.
I like Knox a lot. I was actually at the Knicks open practice Saturday at the Garden, and the crowd was buzzing for Knox and Porzingis. Those are the two guys that they were looking at. He's able to shoot the ball from deep. The first shot he took in the first scrimmage on Saturday was a 3 that he nailed. Came out and nailed another couple. During that scrimmage, he could drive the ball to the hole. To me, his upside is tremendous, especially given who else is on the Knicks. I mean, outside of Porzingis, you've got a bunch of guys that have been around the league, at various different stops. The other thing for me, aside from Allen, kind of being bent, down the depth chart there, is that knucklehead factor again. That we talked about with Dwight Howard. I mean, how many times can this guy get suspended and threatened to get booed off the team for tripping somebody? So who knows? Like maybe he doesn't like the food in Salt Lake City. He trips somebody, gets angry. So for me, give me Knox. Here, I do agree that Rookie of the Year upside for sure, especially given the usage he'll probably have at the Garden. And I think the Knicks fans will get to love him because from what I saw the other day, they were buzzing. The guy had barely even done anything for the team yet. So give me Knox for this one. That's an easy one.
Well done, YouTube. We appreciate the time as always. Now we have to welcome in Reed, Rosalie, and Jeff for one more go-around. And we got some big news coming down the pipe. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reporting that Le'Veon Bell is expected to report to the Steelers during that Week 7 bye sooner than a lot of people thought there.
I believe you were right on that one.
Jeff, Reed, and Rosalie, we got to get their takes on this. Jeff, what do you think? I mean, how does this impact the Steelers and their value?
Oh, I mean, it just boosts their offense, obviously. You can pretty much say goodbye to James Conner, who looks like he's on his way out after last week anyways. This is good timing. I mean, he's obviously seen the situation. They got kind of blown out last night. Quite frankly, they need Bell back. I mean, so he's picking his spot well, in my opinion.
Yeah, Reed, what do you think? With Bell back, what does this do for the value of some of those other guys on this Steelers offense?
Well, it's a rising tide that raises all ships, right? I mean, Le'Veon Bell is clearly one of the better players, if not one of the best in the NFL. We thought maybe Week 10, right? So he would be able to enter into that free agency market. But now after that Week 7 bye, you can plug and play. And to try and buy Le'Veon Bell low now or buy him cheap is gone. So if you potentially had someone who was last place in your season-long league that had Lev Bell, for instance, that time or that before that news comes up, you might want to try and do it really quickly. But at the same time, this guy is going to increase the production of everyone.
Rosalie, what do you think? Bell back? Kind of crazy.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping he would get traded to another team so I could have both Connor and Bell. But after Connor's performance last night, I was kind of disappointed because I do have him on one of my teams. I have both of those guys, so I was hoping to get both. But yeah, last night I think that this is not a coincidence. You watch Connor just not being able to get it done. Bell's no dummy. I think he's seeing that this is the right time to come in. And so, yeah, everybody is better. The Steelers are better overall with Bell there.
I will say this. Big Ben has been throwing a lot lately, like in the first 4 weeks. That'll probably cut down. So the guy might actually affect week to week the most is Big Ben. His volume might go down.
Reed, were you kind of surprised at this, though, especially after yesterday and Earl Thomas going out, and he even tweeted out, like, hey, I'll be the bad guy. I'm going to hold out like as long as possible. Week 7 seems a little early.
Yeah, I think he sort of saw the writing on the wall. And like you were saying, right, I think a lot of what goes on is behind closed doors that we don't know about. And if this is something where he needs to really get his NFL, conditioning back to it. And we saw this last year. We saw it when he didn't play for the entire preseason, came week 1, and he wasn't really there until week 2 or 3. So you might want to get some time in there so he doesn't hurt himself, even if he did came back week 10. So week 7, after that bye, I think it's a good spot. James Conner was really good, right? Really good for those first 3 weeks. So to come back and sort of beg for his position back wouldn't have been a good time. But now when you see Conner's production going down and down and down, I think he knows, right? Le'Veon Bell knows that if he wants to perform, he's got to do it. So he's coming back now. It's a smart guy.
Guys, let's look to tonight. We need your picks for this showdown contest between the Chiefs and the Broncos, starting with your captain's pick, Reed. So 1.5 times the salary, but you get 1.5 times the points. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going Philip Lindsay. It gives you a really cheap option at 8,700. So if you want to get Tyreek Hill on that Mahomes stack, you can. You could even put in Case Keenum to play both those quarterbacks. Like Philip Lindsay is averaging close to 90 yards and playing really only 35% of the snaps. He did lose he got suspended or left that game for throwing some punches, so he got ejected, But this guy is extremely efficient. So if you want to pay down at captain and get those other guys in, he's a viable option. So Philip Lindsay for my captain spot.
Rosalie, who's your captain pick?
Yeah, I agree with Reed on the Philip Lindsay thing, but in looking at it, I'm trying to think who is going to give me all the touchdowns that I want tonight. And you guys know I've been on the Chiefs bandwagon, so you're going to be surprised, I think, that I'm actually going to Demaryius Thomas here. The Chiefs give up a lot of TDs on the outside and 11,100 at that captain spot. I can see him grabbing 2 TDs. He's getting the targets. I really love Sanders too, but I think that he'll be more popular as the captain's pick. So I'm going Demaryius Thomas here with a couple of TDs tonight.
Are you guys nuts?
He was ready.
The Chiefs are playing. The Chiefs are playing. Patrick Mahomes is playing, right?
We talked about this.
Really expensive.
Tyreek Hill. Sure, you could put him in your lineup and get single points or regular points, or you could put him in your captain's points and get 1.5 points when he scores 1 billion points, which he's going to do tonight, by the way. Broncos defense is not the defense it was 2 or 3 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. They suck under Vance Joseph. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill are going to go off. 80 points tonight. All
right, guys. We got Hey, guys, we got 90 seconds. We want to get your value plays tonight. Rosalie, you're up first.
Here I'm going Chiefs. Chris Conley at 2,400. You know what? His targets keep increasing. He's been targeted twice inside the 20. Both resulted in a touchdown. So this is my touchdown flyer at 2,400.
Reed, make it quick.
Jeff Heuerman. He's the backup to Jake Butt. He's still seeing 70% of snaps. He's $2,000. Plug him in.
Jeffrey.
Spencer Ware. Play him over whoever Reed picked.
Okay.
Good Kevin Coleman call last week, too.
Jeff, what are the chances you're using a DST or kicker in your showdown lineups?
Against the Chiefs, not a chance. Not in this game. Maybe the Chiefs kicker, but not a defense. Not for me. Not
Rosalie, no. You shook your head. Reed, you shook your head.
Well,
no.
I do McManus. I wouldn't do the Chiefs kicker because he only has 2 field goals this year. But McManus with 4, I can do that.
Good spot for kickers. It's mile high. Air's thin.
Yeah, exactly. You can kick like an 80-yard field goal there.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys. We're just winding down the clock here, but thanks for the time, as always.
Yeah.
Just rolling things out, hey, Jessie?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys.
I will-
You know I love you, Jeff.
I will say this. Reed and I knew he was going to go with Tyreek Hill. We talked about it before
Come
the
on,
show.
that's
You're
the
so,
most
he's
obvious.
so
all right,
stinking
this has
predictable.
been The Sweat. I'm Jesse. He's Emerson, and we must go. We'll be back tomorrow at 6.